Orlando Magic HQ. Was poppin'. So happy NBA Draft Week, Magic fans. Today is Tuesday, June 20th, which means that we are just 2 days away from this year's NBA Draft. That's going to be taking place on Thursday, June 22nd at 8 a.m. Eastern. And as it's currently constructed right now, Jeff Weltman and this front office are still going to be picking with both picks number 6 and 11. And Magic fans, we've done a lot of talking about a lot of different prospects here on the channel. We've talked about guys like Jarris Walker, Taylor Hendricks, Grady Dick, both of the Thompson twins. The list goes on. But Magic fans, I'm going to be talking about today one of the more underrated and least talked about players for the Magic to possibly target in this year's draft, and it would be specifically at pick number 11, and that's going to come with Keyonte George. So who is Keyonte George? Keyonte George is a 19-year-old guard who just finished up his freshman season at the University of Baylor as the highest ranked recruit in program history. He appeared on both all freshman and all Big 12 Rookie of the Year teams, and George also holds the program record for the most 20-point games by a freshman with 12 such games. Now, Keyonte George comes in at 6'4", 185 pounds, and in his freshman season, he averaged 15, 4, and 3 on 37, 34, 79 splits. He did chip in a steal per game, but he did average about 3 turnovers per game. When going back and watching over Keyonte George, I think he's a modern-day combo scoring guard. This is a guy who can handle the rock. He can move without the ball. He runs the pick and roll extremely effectively. He's a guy who can score inside and out, and he reminds me a lot of Anthony Simons or even a Jordan Poole. Now, talking about some of Keyonte George's strengths and what he brings to the table, the first thing you're going to notice about him is he's a very good shooter. I don't think he's a great or a phenomenal shooter yet. He's got the capabilities of being that, but as of right now, he's a very good shooter and just a guy who can go out and just get a bucket. Keyonte George does a great job of moving without the ball around screens. He does a great job with spot-up threes, catching and shooting with ease, and off the dribble, this guy can pull up from way downtown. He'll hit contested jumpers over bigger defenders, and he can get to all 3 levels, penetrate the defense, and at the rim, he's an extremely crafty finisher. He's not the best at finishing through contact yet, especially with his smaller frame, but he's not afraid to go up in there, especially through the trees, and try to go in there and try to get an and-one opportunity. Another great strength about George is his ability to maneuver in the pick and roll game, especially off the screens. He does a great job of maneuvering around the screens, creating space for his jumpers, and he does a great job of just feeling out the defense and especially a way to get around his defenders to create space. But since we're talking about George's ability to score the ball on all 3 levels, let's actually take a look at his shot chart now. Now, taking a look at George's shot chart, he does a great job in that left corner, which is very favorable to him, 41.7%. And while it may not look like he's a great 3-point shooter, especially after he averaged about 34% from behind the arc this past season, I think with his volume and with time, he's going to become a much better 3-point shooter because he's got those kind of capabilities. He does a great job of taking a decent amount of mid-range jumpers, and then when you get to that restricted arc at 48.3%, he's a guy that's willing to go inside and create contact. He's a crafty finisher, and he's got the capabilities of being a very good finisher, but he does need to do a better job of converting a lot more of those opportunities. 48.3% at the restricted arc. That's just not going to cut it. Another great quality about George is his ability to have a quick burst. He can blow by his defenders. He's got an extremely quick first step, and I think he's just very confident in general when he's pushing the ball in transition. He can knife through the defense. He does a great job of breaking down his defenders in ISO ball situations, and he's just got an extremely quick handle, a quick jumper, and this guy just plays extremely confidently on the offensive side of the ball. Now, talking about Keyonte George and what he brings defensively, he is a very solid defender. He's got quick feet, quick hands. He's extremely twitchy, but he's also just very aggressive on that perimeter, staying in front of his man. And while Keyonte George does have a relatively smaller frame at 6'4", 185 pounds, and even though he didn't test his measurables at the combine and he doesn't have a wingspan that's on record as of right now, he does put a lot of effort into the defensive side of the ball, and he does do a good job of just being aggressive. He's not going to be some high flyer that's going to be jumping up out of the gym to block a lot of shots, but he also is not going to be a high flyer like one of the Thompson twins on the offensive side of the ball, where he's constantly going to be dunking the ball in transition, and this guy can just leap up out of the gym. He does have the athletic capabilities of being a guy who can dunk the ball, but defensively speaking, I do think he's a very solid perimeter defender. But if George wants to continue to become a better 3-and-D player, especially as a combo scoring guard, he's going to have to add more to that frame. Now, kind of getting into Keyonte George and some of his weaknesses, the first thing you're going to notice about him, and I just said it, is with his smaller frame. He could definitely add some muscle to that to become a better 3-and-D player at the next level. Like I said, 185 pounds, 6'4", at 19 years of age, you're going to give him a pass, and he's only going to continue to get bigger and stronger at the next level. Another weakness that you identify with his game is that his turnovers are just too high. His turnover to assist ratio is not very good at all. About 3 assists per game, 3 turnovers per game. That ratio is just not going to cut it. Another weakness you'd identify with his game is really with his shot selection. It's extremely questionable, especially when he's trying to hoist up three-pointers over bigger defenders. Even though he can get his feet set and his motion set in these set shots, whether it's off the dribble or whether it's with the catch and shoot, he does need to do a better job with his overall shot selection, especially if he's just trying to drive to the rim and try to shoot it over a triple team. That can lead to some bad quality shots and also some just unnecessary turnovers. And then another weakness within his game is just that he needs to become a better and more consistent finisher at the rim. That 48.3% inside the restricted arc is just not going to cut it, because he's got the talent, he's got the capabilities, and he's got the explosiveness to be a guy who can get to the rim consistently, whether it's in transition or in the half-court offense, especially in iso ball situations. He's got to become a better finisher, but that'll come with time, practice, and a lot more of adding to his frame at the next level. And then another critique I would have with George's game is the fact that he struggled mightily in that round of 32 loss to Creighton. He only shot 1 of 10 from the field. You expect your best players to go out there and perform on the biggest stages, and he failed to do that in the round of 32. He was a big reason why they lost that game. He's not the sole reason they lost that game, but you do expect your best players to go out there and continue to perform at a high level in the biggest moments. Now, really getting into my final verdict when it comes to Keyonte George and what I think about him potentially coming to Orlando with pick number 11 is, I'm all for it. I think that he's a phenomenal prospect and he offers a lot to what the modern NBA is. And the thing that I've talked about here mostly on the channel with a lot of these prospects is the fit. I'm not necessarily for BPA, best player available, as of right now when it comes to the Orlando Magic. In years past, if you would have told me take the best player available, I would have been all for it. But the Magic, to me, already have their 2 cornerstone players in franchise players with Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. Now it's about putting the right complementary pieces that fit around these guys and adding some shooting to this team, something that the Magic have not had in an extremely long time. And now the Magic have an opportunity to add that to this team around their 2 cornerstone pieces in Banchero and Franz Wagner, and add some shooting and add some serious depth to this team with a guy like Keyonte George at number 11, who's someone I would be extremely ecstatic about grabbing. And the reason I assume the Magic would take Keyonte George at number 11 overall is because of not only his talent and his abilities, but they're probably going to take a forward at number 6 overall, if you ask me. Whether that's a Jarris Walker or a Taylor Hendricks, I think that's the direction the Magic would probably go in, which would mean that a guard like a Grady Dick or a Keyonte George would be there available at number 11 overall if they're still on the board. When I look at a lineup potentially of Markelle Fultz, Jalen Suggs, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr., you're going to run it back with that same starting 5 and that same core that we know, if they're healthy, these guys are extremely capable of taking that next leap. And then off the bench, you're still going to have Cole Anthony, a guy who's embraced that 6-man role. And then you'd have Keyonte George coming off the bench alongside Cole Anthony, because I see a lot of Keyonte George and I see a lot of Anthony Simons and Jordan Poole in him. Because if you remember with Anthony Simons, excluding this year where he started all 60-plus games for the Portland Trailblazers this year and all the games that he played, he was coming off the bench for the Trailblazers and he was a combo scoring guard, a guy who could just be an absolute bucket and really bring that spark off the bench. And then a guy with Jordan Poole, a guy who really embraced that 6-man role over time before he got a lot more opportunities from Steve Kerr and the Warriors organization. And Jordan Poole was a big reason why the Boston Celtics did not win that series in the NBA Finals, and Jordan Poole was a huge key to the success of the Golden State Warriors. Grabbing a guy like Keyonte George to come off the bench and develop into the NBA game alongside with whoever the Magic want to take at number 6 overall, and hypothetically speaking, let's just say it's a Taylor Hendricks or a Jarris Walker, I do think that you're going to get that combo scoring guard. You're going to get a guy who can take and relieve a lot of ball pressure and a lot of eyes off of our other primary ball handlers in guys like Paolo Banchero, Markelle Fultz, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner. The list goes goes on. Keyonte George fits the modern NBA. He's going to do a great job in pick and roll situations, pushing the ball in transition. He's going to be a shooter, and he shoots the ball confidently. He can go score in ISO situations. I really love Keyonte George a lot, and I think he would be a damn near seamless fit here in Orlando. I would love to see this guy in a Magic uniform. Magic fans, if you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure you guys go ahead and drop me a thumbs up. It takes 1 second and it helps me and the channel out tremendously. Make sure you guys also go ahead and hit that subscribe bell to stay tuned for more Orlando Magic content that I do here on YouTube. And make sure you guys also go ahead and follow me and Orlando Magic HQ on all of our socials, especially on Twitter. We're both very active and we're on there every single day. The link tree will be in the description down below, so you guys can go ahead and check that out. But Magic fans, thanks again for sticking around throughout the whole video. Brett James, aka BJ, I'm out, y'all. Go Magic, baby. Peace.